I live in a town where you can still hear church bells chime on a Sunday morning, where families gather with pride to watch their children grow like flowers in the sun. We honor the brave who sacrificed for our country and those who continue to serve and protect us. In the spirit of love, belonging, and acceptance, this program was created. I'm Marie Wyman, and welcome to Close to Home. Hello, I'm Marie Wyman, and welcome to Close to Home. It's great to be back. It's been a while, hasn't it, everybody? Because COVID got in our way. But we're here today, and I'm happy to bring to you several women that have been most instrumental in the St. Rose of Lima's success over the years. Today, I'm delighted to present to you, in honor of our organization, the St. Rose of Lima Women's Club, my guests. And here they are. Past President Lisa Gillingham, past President Teresa Foster, and past President Sue Sabelli. I'd like to read to you the mission statement of this very fine organization. The St. Rose of Lima Women's Club is a nonprofit service and social organization of the St. Rose of Lima Catholic Church. It's established to foster a sense of community and perform projects that service the parish, the town, and the world. I know that may sound a little presumptuous of us, because we have a half an hour to discuss it all, but I'm sure you'll understand once we get started that these women have been an integral part of the success of this organization over the past 35 years. So, without further ado, I'd like to start with my friend, Lisa Gillingham, who, by the way, has served on every single board that we've had since, well, a long time. So I'm gonna ask Lisa what she really thought was the most important project she was ever on. Lisa, what do you think?
Oh, the most important project. I would say perhaps Bunko. Which doesn't sound like much, because Bunko is just a game. It's a silly dice game. But what it did for us as an organization, I think, was kind of got our name out there. And it was a big tool in that allowed us to invite lots of people to come and spend time with us. And that is, after all, what our church is about. We're supposed to have open doors and welcome all.
That's right.
And I think Bunko has served us that way. I'm not sure that we imagined it that way, right? Yeah. This started way back when Teresa was a co-president and I was serving as vice president and didn't have much to do. And I said, you know, how can I help? And she pointed to a survey where some of our membership was looking for a fun night out. And so
a social interaction.
Interaction, yeah. And for those who've played Bunko, you might know that you rotate tables a lot, so you're never really sitting in the same spot for more than 10 minutes or so. So over the course of the evening, you meet 80 other women.
That's fabulous.
And have a chance to chat. And I also think for those who are guests, it's an opportunity for them to see us and our church and our faith family in a little bit of a different way.
Well, that sounds wonderful. And I can tell you from personal experience that it's a really fun night, and it's enjoyed by, and it still continues to be enjoyed by many, many, many women of all faiths, not just belonging to the Catholic Church and our organization. But I know there's several different questions that we could talk about with Bunko, because there's a lot of funny stories attached to that. We have a member in our organization who's a bit of a comedian, and she would get up and tell funny stories. And so it was really a wonderful night of entertainment. And it's something that it goes a long way to give fellowship, where fellowship was kind of lacking in a social context. Right, Lisa? I think
right.
that's it.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that during COVID, the St. Rosa Lima Women's Club was very instrumental in making a number of masks for the community. Again, this is harking back to our projects, but also going back to our mission statement. And it's very important. And Lisa and Terry Foster did that during COVID. They were in charge of making all kinds of masks. So do you want to tell us about that, Teresa?
Well, it started out with just a request from Lisa. She was making masks, and she offered some masks to myself. And knowing that there was an organization out there that was looking for masks in the medical setting, I went back to Lisa and asked if she had a few more masks for that organization. And she said, you know, if you helped me, we could get this going for a lot of different people. And it was under Lisa's direction that
and tell me, how many
that took
masks
over.
did you guys?
It was
3,000?
over 3,000.
3,000.
And I think now,
Yeah.
when if you hear that story out of context, it doesn't necessarily seem like much. But what's important to remember was in those early days of COVID, no one could get their hands on masks.
Yes,
Right.
I remember
So
that. That
in
was
the
difficult.
hospitals, you know, all our nurses and other healthcare workers were wearing homemade masks because
Yes.
the hospitals couldn't get enough of them.
And-
And that, so we were a
Yes.
stopgap for a short period
Yeah,
of time.
that was
yeah.
that was a wonderful endeavor, and something that I think people remembered about us at that particular point in time. And,
I think so, too.
Yeah, that was do you have something else
Well, I
you
was
wanted
just
to
going
say,
to say, the other thing too was when Lisa and I thought about our membership, there were people who loved to sew,
Yep.
and there were people who could
Right.
not. And
Right.
so I
Right.
provided, the cutting of the material so that Lisa and her sewers could just pick up a kit and just
Right.
go to town.
And
not
also,
take
I
time.
remember during COVID that we had Zoom meetings, which were very important, because as an organization, we didn't want to lose the contact with our members because everything was shut down. So we had a wonderful interaction. We did Mardi Gras on camera, and we had little,
Yep.
hats, and we just had a wonderful time. But it was something that we remember because it was a time where we were isolated, and this brought us back together again. So that was something very memorable. And also, and I have a cookbook for the 20th anniversary we did. Lisa, and I happened to be lucky enough to tag along with Lisa on the project, but that was a wonderful cookbook, and we surveyed all the women in the parish, I think we did, and they came up with the most interesting and unusual, ideas for menus, and so we put it all together in a cookbook, and it's one of the best little cookbooks you'll ever see.
Yeah.
That was a fun thing to do. And Lisa, we had a lot of good times putting that together.
And can I just say that for me, that was my first big project with the club.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it always takes a little bit of guts. Just raise your hand and say, yeah, I can
Yeah.
do that. And
Yeah.
what I remember was the warm welcome that I received.
Yeah.
I was terrified that this would be like work and where nobody wants to help, and it wasn't, right? Like a large group of women signed up to come to
It was
my
wonderful.
little meetings and help, and that was very encouraging for a new person.
It
That's
was.
really
It
neat.
was it was a wonderful opportunity for the women of the parish to make something, all of them. Years ago, I remember we did a quilt, and we sold it at we raffled it off at one of our parties or something we had at the time. And I remember it was a beautiful, beautiful quilt. And I think I I probably put in, I don't know how much money, and Claire Swan won it with one ticket. I remember, God rest her soul, Claire Swan. We're thinking about you, Claire. Such a lovely lady. But I do want to also ask Lisa too, and I want everybody to participate because we all have memories of Abby's house.
Oh, yes.
You know, let's talk about that, Sue.
Well, Abby's House has been a particular mission involvement that we've had for the community of Worcester, with women obviously at Abby's House who have suffered homelessness and other types of mental health or domestic violence. And so we started, and I have no idea when, but over the years, various women would take on the responsibility of once a month, we would have people bring food to one of our houses and take down to them a meal that would serve probably close to 45 women who come in from the streets, and it would be a hot meal with usually a couple of entrees, salad, bread, a dessert, and then
A birthday cake, remember? We used to do the
and then we
birthday
would
cake.
also acknowledge that women who had birthdays that particular month would be acknowledged, and they would sing happy birthday. And it was just wonderful because we were able to come down, we served the food to the women, and they were so appreciative. It was one of those kinds of events that we always had more than enough women wanting to donate
Right.
entrees and bring it already prepared. And there was a couple of women who would take it down to Abby's house to the kitchen area and then have it put out the way it should be, and then actually do the serving. And in some cases, we might have been able to sit down and interact with the women and share some stories and stuff. Again, that was one of those things that went by the by with COVID. We were no longer able to come in, and at this point, they've actually hired a chef, so they don't need those kinds of meals being brought in. But we're participating in other Abby's House endeavors because
Right.
as a ministry of women, we'd want to be able to support them. And so there's the Spectacular, they have a 5K at some point.
Yeah.
So these are other ways. And during COVID, we actually, out of our treasury, just made donations so that they could still purchase meals for their women, because
And this
we
is
needed
just-
to do that.
And this is just one of many things
Right.
that the Women's Club has done over the years. We were the longest
Yeah.
participants
Yes.
in Abby's history, which is a real feather in all these women that put so much heart and soul into
Mm-hmm.
this organization. We were so appreciative, and to be able to do it,
Right.
and they appreciated us
Right.
too as well. Another thing I wanted to ask you about our involvement with the community is Visitation House too, as well. I know you and I, as I don't know if we were president, vice president then, or whatever it was, we
Yeah.
went to Visitation House.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, Terry.
That visit was eye-opening to see women who were able to keep their babies at a time when they were uncertain financially, even being supported by their families sometimes. And so that visit really opened both of our eyes, I'm sure, to their needs. And actually, that was the organization when I went to Lisa for the mask, who were in dire need for these
Right,
women
right.
to,
So
yeah,
it was
yeah.
it was an integral part of who we are as women, but helping women.
Helping
And
women.
not only that, of course, we can't even talk about helping others without talking about Pernay and Julie
Right.
Zaturka and what she's done all these years, 20-something years for Pernay in Worcester. And Jan Capella with Hope House, serving the underserved
Yeah.
in Gardner area
Yeah.
with backpacks and with clothing, our clothing drives.
Right.
I mean, we're just really touching the surface
Right.
here with following our mission statement. There's so many instances of that. And another thing too, we obviously go outside our little milieu too. And I want you, Sue, to tell us about the Kenya project that we did a few years back.
Well, that was very interesting because it was brought to us from it was sort of started from another one of our women who, her husband had been in the nursing home, and she got to know one of the aides, and come to find out this particular aide was very involved with Shine the Light Kenya, where she was working with different places, a couple places in Kenya, with young women who couldn't attend school during the time of month when they would have their periods because they did not have appropriate ways of managing that, and they had no ways of getting what they needed. So she came and she spoke to us about what the need was, and that there would be a way to sew again, which it's not a lost art. Sewing is a very big art that we should still maintain. These kits for these young ladies, so that when they would have their periods, they would be able to use them, they could be rewashed and everything, and they could continue their schooling. And what we did as a group was not only prepare the kits, but we also raised money and donated some sewing machines, because the idea was not for us to just keep supporting them through what we have done, but to provide some way for sustainability for themselves out there. And so that's been an ongoing situation that this woman has been involved in, and I still keep in touch with her through Facebook to see what's been happening. She goes and speaks at a lot of different venues, and she's come to us a couple of times too afterwards. And she also then, in sort of appreciation of what our group was willing to do, brought to this beautiful tapestry from Kenya, and we now have it displayed downstairs. I think it's in the area where a lot of our stuff is stored, so that anyone who comes in to look at what the Women's Club is doing can see this tapestry. So there's the global perspective that we had.
True.
And I'd also like to mention one of the communion breakfast speakers that I brought. We have a communion breakfast at the end of sort of our year, so to speak, where we sort of conclude everything, was a representative, and she is also from Worcester. She's one of the District 4's councilwoman, Dr. Sarai Rivera, who is also a ministry herself, has a ministry herself, and in doing so through her church in Worcester, does a lot of missionary work. And we had her come and talk about what does she do. And our women, when they heard her at the breakfast, were so impressed that they came up to her afterwards and said, what can we do? And so they were able to help her take to them, when she makes her missionary trips, loads of supplies for the women, for the children, medicines. So, I mean, the global perspective, it's amazing how even our small little parish, our small little women's group, has been able to have such large impact.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And that was such a wonderful thing. We also support the food pantry, and I know Teresa, she was one of the first to advise us to give them fresh produce. So tell us a little bit about that, Teresa.
So our church in the summer has a beautiful garden that provides all of that produce for the Northborough Food Pantry through the whole summer and probably into the fall.
Right.
Yeah.
But in the spring, you know, there's typically no fresh vegetables, fruits and produce. So a few of us got together and said, why not before the Easter holidays begin, that we could provide fresh produce and vegetables for people that want to put together a nice dinner around that holiday. And it's also provided at Thanksgiving, right? But there was nothing in the spring. So
That's a beautiful,
so we
a
did
beautiful,
that,
so that's a
yeah.
community-based,
A community,
you know,
yeah.
community, and we did the outreach, and we've done the community. Go ahead, Teresa.
Yeah, oh, I was going to say, I mean, we've also donated jackets and things like that. And
Right. And I
Yeah.
remember during the COVID, or
we-
just, we took a picture of all of us, and we had all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
that people needed during the
Yeah.
COVID epidemic.
Oh, yeah.
And that was an eye-opener, wasn't it? I mean, that was truly an eye-opener. The other thing, too, I wanted to mention briefly, one of the most dearest people on earth, she has passed, Laverne Burton. I'd like to dedicate this show to Laverne. She was our spiritual advisor for many years. She worked in the Diocese of Worcester for many years with very important duties and high-ranking jobs. But you would never know it because Laverne was just such a down-to-earth, beautiful soul. But she wrote our beautiful prayer that Teresa brought to our club through Laverne. You want to tell us about that, Teresa?
So a lot of our meetings would open and we would always start with a prayer. But I thought it would be nice to have like our own club prayer that was specific for the women of St. Rose. And so I went to her and she put together a beautiful prayer that we say before each meeting. And it's long.
It is,
But I think
but it's
the
beautiful.
message in it is for us to be able to, look at others in the light of Christ. So.
And one other thing I wanted to mention too, we've done some collaborations with other ministries within the church. And one of them is close to my heart because my husband was a Grand Knight for a number of years, is the Knights of Columbus. And my husband Joe and Kenny was a Grand Knight.
Yeah, he was
Kenny,
at some point.
yeah,
he was.
he's a great guy. And so when Teresa and I were sort of parenting the women's club back in the day, we had the idea that we wanted to have some kind of social. Tell us about it.
So it worked out nice that Marie's husband was the Grand Knight of the Knights of Columbus. I was the president. And we got talking and we said, why don't we do like a co-joint evening out? And so we had a dinner and dance
Oh,
at
it
the
was
Knights
wonderful.
of Columbus in Westboro.
Yeah.
And it was the Women's Club and the Knights of Columbus.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was
It was a
just a fun
wonderful time.
I
People
think it was Hawaiian themed.
Yeah, I know, and we did a 50s too. Remember the 50s? We did a 50s dance too.
Yeah.
And a lot of people still talk about that.
Yeah, yeah.
I went out and got a crinoline and it made me look about 45 pounds heavier. It was
you
a
were
riot.
cute.
It was a riot. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. We had so
Yeah.
much fun that night. And I do hope that come in the future, under the new presidency, Maureen Scholl is our president, and Patty Willems is our vice president. I hope that we would be able to do a melding of certain things and do it with other ministries too as well. And I think they've talked about that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
They have. But the other thing I wanted to get before we close, because we're running out of time, but I want to just go over some of the things that we don't want to leave people out. Many years ago, when the children of the parish were being baptized, we came up with the idea that we wanted to gift them with something. So we designed these little bibs. Remember the little bibs? And we gave them to the children, the babies that were being baptized. Well, I was talking to Amelia Graham, and Amy has done for that particular ministry, she has done it for many years. And now we were just discussing the fact that we're going to be doing little sashes for the older children that weren't baptized during COVID.
nice.
So they have a little sash, and they're
Very
going to be.
Is Amy making those too?
Yeah, I believe so.
And she made a lot of masks too.
She
Yeah,
did.
and Amy was,
she's
so we have to get Amy in there because she has done
Yeah, she's amazing.
unbelievable, and she's a very quiet, a no-nonsense kind of person, and she's the voice of reason. I have come to understand about her. And of course, then we can't let a program go by without talking about our prayer line. And people that we pray for. And Donna Cox and past president Donna Cox and Fran Warren have been instrumental in doing that for many years. And I want to do a shout out for that. The other thing we really need to talk about too is our prayer shawl ministry.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
under the auspices of Lee Zawacki, she has been very instrumental in doing prayer shawl. It's a universal project now. It used to be international, but now I've come to understand it is a universal project. And women get together to crochet and knit these fabulous shawls. They pray over them and give them to people in need, whether they be sick, dying, or just emotionally distraught. Whatever the need is, we give them the shawl. And I want to do a shout out to Lee and her, obviously her committee for doing all of that. And I think sister was very, our sister who passed away was very instrumental in that too.
If I may, I might add, they also make a beautiful baby gift. If you think, I have done that before, where I've given
Really?
one.
Great
I mean,
idea.
can you imagine a better gift?
I
Give a baby
know.
a blanket that has been handmade
And has
prayed over.
prayers.
Prayed
Yeah,
over.
and has prayers.
over.
And yes, our sister who passed away, I wanted to mention her too, because she was instrumental in so many things. She was instrumental in giving us some retreats that we did, Sister Joan. You know, we really need to thank her. She's passed, but we want to do a shout out to her too as well. And I also want to say to our audience that the St. Rose of Lima Women's Club is an organization that welcomes all. Whenever we have any of our functions, everyone is invited. All women who want to be with us are welcome. There are pretty much several things during the year that are very, very popular. Our Advent gathering, our remembrance of people that have passed in the church. Lisa has done this. We were asked to do this as an organization by our pastor. And Lisa, tell us a little bit about that. It's coming up shortly.
Yes, it is
beautiful.
coming up in 2 weeks. So our parish, every year in November, we remember all of the parishioners who passed in the past year, and in a special way, those whose funeral masses were celebrated at our church. So there's a special mass for them, and afterwards we have an invitation. I don't want to say invitation only, but we invite the families of those parishioners who passed for a special brunch, and that's hosted by the Women's Club. And it's another example of, I chair it for the past few years, since it started. But, I raise my hand and I ask, will anyone help me? And people come out of the woodwork to do this. And so many people find that work to be extremely rewarding.
It is very rewarding.
Right.
To remember
Yeah.
our loved ones is very
Absolutely.
rewarding.
It's very important.
Yeah.
We also have a ministry fair that is put on by the parish, and we have a representation at the ministry fair, and that is always a wonderful thing to do because people get to know who we are, and we have handouts and things of that nature. In the past, Terry Foster has been instrumental in doing the Apple Fest. We during COVID it was a little sticky, but we hope to resume doing that again at some point in time. That is a community endeavor for the town, and the women. We had lots of volunteers, and we had beautiful little apple, kind of like a kuchen or something, and everybody looked for it, and they used to come to our table and say, well, we want, and we were right next door to the Knights of Columbus. Needless to say, they were flinging hot dogs and hamburgers while we were feeding people apple kuchen. But our time, unfortunately, has run down, and now we have to say goodbye. But I want to tell you that this was wonderful to get back in the groove and do something like this for an organization that is very worthwhile. And we need to remember that when we reach out, we really feel the hand of God. And when we do things for others, it is the feeling you'll never be able to forget. So I want to thank you for being in our audience today, and I want to thank my friends and my lovely women that I've known for many, many years. They graced us with their presence today, and I want to say thank you again for allowing us the opportunity to come into your home. Goodbye all. For next time, I'll see you close to home.